On today's episode, I welcome Alex B to the B-side. She's a talented singer and songwriter from the beautiful city of Victoria in British Columbia, Canada. And she has made a name for herself with her soul-stirring indie soul style. So let's dive straight into this wonderful conversation. Hey B-siders, thank you so much for joining me to a brand new guest episode, which I always say that I'm always very excited. I am excited. It's always so interesting to hear other people's, stories, and other artists, especially their stories on how they create their music, their craft. And I'm very excited today to welcome Alex B to the B-side. Hello, Alex. How are you going?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Very, very good. Sweating today. It's a hot one here in Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah, well, it's very dark here in Victoria right now in Canada. But yeah, it's been lovely weather this weekend. So
Oh, that's good. Excellent.
yeah.
Plenty of time to go and check out live venues and not freeze too much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, beside us, I've invited Alex to come on and share a little bit about obviously her story around music, what music means to her, but also because she will have an EP coming out, an album coming out very shortly. Hopefully, by the time this airs, it will be either out or just about to come out. You can check out the details in the episode description for that. But what intrigued me about her way of creating those songs that she will release is that it has a little bit of a concept from what I understand. And I'd love to kind of start there so we can really give everyone who's here today an idea what we're going to talk about, because it's really interesting. A little bit of a sort of disclaimer, it's not exactly a super duper happy kind of topic, but one that I believe everyone in their life will go through at some stage and in some form. So would you like to sort of tell us a little bit what your album's about, and maybe after that, how did you come up to do that in the first place?
Yeah, definitely. So um so the title of the album is called Unstruck Sound, and it was taken from actually the meaning of an old Sanskrit word. And the Sanskrit word is anahata, and it basically represents the point in the energy body where all potential kind of lies. And I was like, wow, that's a really cool concept. I love that. I'm like, let's run with it. And so when I first started writing, I was like, okay, this is like, I love this because it felt like, I could basically write about anything, like all possibilities are here. And of course, as like artists and musicians, often we're taking our own experience or the experience of others or observation and writing that in a way that resonates with ourselves or others, obviously, hopefully both. But for myself, I had to really take a look at, okay, well, what do I want to write about? And at the time, my life was feeling a little chaotic, and I was always feeling like, well, I'm never truly grounded in anything. And I always felt like I was dealing with this kind of wave of emotion on any given day that I didn't really know what to do with. And so when I started writing, it was just all of these feelings. But then as all the pieces kind of came together, it was very much like, oh, you're grieving about this, or you like feel like you've kind of lost something here. And so all the pieces started to like come together, and I realized that, oh yeah, this is very much an album about grief. And so it's been structured in a way where each song is kind of a different stage of grief. Typically, there's about 5 or 6 stages. So I took the five main stages and wrote a song for each of them. Yeah, and it's been very interesting. And they have not gone in order by any means. I actually think I wrote the acceptance song first, and then like the denial stage came later. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting that how you sort of, like you said, you didn't write them in like the order of how grief kind of works, but in how it just came about. And
Mm.
do you feel like now that you've finished the album, it's gonna come out like you're finished with that part now? Have you moved on from that? Or is there still some stuff
Definitely.
lingering, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything, it's helped me get through some of the really big things that had kind of been trailing me most of my kind of early life. And I think there's probably still going to be, you know, parts of my life that I'll need to like examine, and this album will probably kind of help me through that in some way. I'll be able to kind of call back to it a little bit. But I think for the most part, yeah, I've been able to kind of process all of that, and I think that's half the reason I've been able to write it now. It was very much like being able to like recognize, oh, this is what you're dealing with, and then being able to actually talk about those things as well, which, first stage is denial. So there was a lot of that happening. I'm like, oh no, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And that's literally what the first track is called. It's called I'm Fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm what are your kind of dreams, or what would you hope that anyone who listens to that album gets from it? What's kind of your sort of, apart from obviously the stages of grief that they can hopefully relate to in some shape or form, but what's kind of the message or hope or dreams you have for it, for anyone that listens to the music you wrote?
Yeah, gosh, that's a good question. So I have found, I mean, from my experience, everyone takes something different from a song. So whatever meaning I might have had in a particular verse or a particular line, it's never going to mean the exact same thing to somebody else. It's going to mean something completely different. So in that sense, I hope that there's just those little pieces that resonate with somebody, or with a larger audience, that helps them recognize, something within themselves or within their life, and they're able to kind of, move forward, or at least process something, or even just identify it. So I never want to kind of put any kind of like expectation on, what the music might do, but I would hope that there's just that little, yeah, that little nugget in there for everybody. Because going through grief is not linear by any means. Often, you kind of cycle through the stages, and you think you're past one of them, and then you'll cycle back to a different one. And so it's very much, I hope that everyone can kind of experience the album as it is, kind of one stage after another, but then also feel like they can go to one particular stage and just really, yeah, resonate with that whenever they feel like they need to. Yeah.
Yes. And the funny thing is, I do feel that even to this day, we don't really allow ourselves to feel those sad and negative emotions much. And they're not
Mm,
really talked about a lot in society still, because maybe they're still looked at as weak, or you shouldn't feel that way. Whereas I do
mhm.
feel and believe we should feel them all, and then nothing's that bad. And that's why I love that, artists like yourself, they really have this theme on an album and say, okay, this is literally an emotion that might not is so popular, but it's
Yeah.
necessary for our life. So, and then I think that's really great. I love that. I
Thank
think it needs to be done a little bit more. It's not nice, but we all experience
Yeah,
it. So yeah.
totally. Yeah. And I feel like as a songwriter, and then a composer as well to a certain degree, that I don't do well with trying to write about surface level things. Like if someone came up to me and they were like, "Hey, we want you to write a jingle for something," I'd be like, "I'm not your girl. Like,
No.
you gotta go find somebody else." So, yeah, it's been interesting to really like dive into the, you know, what we see as kind of negative emotions or just heavier things, and really feel like, yeah, we need to like recognize this, because I think that's for anyone kind of going through any kind of kind of processing, recognizing it is like the first step. And so, yeah, I feel like putting this out there is part of my ability to not only like recognize it, process it, and kind of be done with it to a certain degree, but also, yeah, I think just how do I want to say this? Like help others to do in some form in a way of like it being therapeutic to a certain degree. Yeah.
Mm, yes, and that's kind of a theme that I've seen a lot by doing this and then speaking to non-artist people, like who are not singers or songwriters or by any means like creating music as such. The impact that songwriting can have of humans like yourself. It
Yeah.
really is therapy in a way that can really help us identify where we possibly are stuck in a loop, or there's a certain area we need to dig into a little bit more. And most of the times it's not intentional.
Yeah.
So, that's why I think sometimes songs can come out of nowhere and it just hit you in the face and you're like, oh, hang on a sec, what was that?
I love that. I love when that happens. And when that happens, I'll have that song like on repeat for like a month sometimes. And it's like, and it'll be on my playlist and it'll cycle through. And because I eat that up. I love when that happens.
Yes, I know. And it's like you don't want to listen to anything else because you're just so in
Yeah.
this zone of what does it mean and what's this line saying and there's this particular sound in the chorus, it really hit me hard, and you go in this
Yeah,
whole
exactly.
rabbit hole.
Yeah, which I love. I think that's awesome. And I love when that happens, especially, I mean, it'll happen, when I'm kind of diving into some new music online, but I love when it happens like in a live setting as well. I live for live music. And so I love discovering kind of new songs, new artists, things like that.
So are you more of you don't sound like to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, like a mainstream kind of girl. So you sound more like sort of an indie, independent type of, I love these underground almost kind of artists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. I've always been listening to something else. Like if someone's listening to like the top 40, like I'm listening to something that's like just under the top 40. Like, and I just find that I'm just more connected to that kind of music and those kinds of artists. I don't mind like, if I'm out at the club, like dancing along to some of these like top 40 hits, they're great for that reason.
Hmm.
But they don't kind of get at yeah, they don't really get at the heartstrings, which I kind of prefer. That's how I operate. That's how I've always operated. And so I always look for, an authentic story, an authentic voice when I'm listening to music. And so that's what I'm gonna resonate with the most, and that's who I'm going to listen to more often. Yeah.
Mm. Yes. Well, I must admit, I've obviously started this whole journey and I love my sort of top 40. I admit that.
Yeah.
But, I think one of the benefits for me was it opened my ears and my eyes and my heart to other musicians that I've never heard before. And it was just so, and it is so amazing to see the craft that's still going on about the songwriting, the producing, and the thought
Totally.
that goes into creating just a song by itself. I have no idea how it works. I put my hand up to that. So I admire everybody that does it. But just talking to people like yourself who are an artist and create things, it really made me appreciate, I don't like to call it the smaller or the indie
Mm,
artist, but just generally someone who really wants to create and put it out there and takes that chance. And
yeah.
maybe has sort of this doubt, oh, will anyone actually listen? And I've really started to appreciate that so much more. So.
Yeah. That's really nice to hear too, because I mean it's tough. Everyone has access now. Like it's so much easier to get your music out there. So it gets harder to kind of like rise above some of the noise, if you know what I mean. So yeah, you put it out and you're like, well, I hope this finds the right people, the right listeners, and yeah, just the people who might need to hear it. And so it's exciting, but yeah, there's definitely those like thoughts that kind of roll around in your head at night, going, well, I only got like this many plays this week or whatever it is. And so yeah, it just makes you think, but it it doesn't stop me from
Good.
doing what I'm doing. Yeah, I'll just be like, yep, that was how it went, and that's fine. I'm just gonna move on to the next thing. And yeah, it really is yeah, a, an interesting process, just the creation itself, but then like once you get to that kind of post creation aspect, it's, putting it out there and wondering how is it going to land and feeling okay with what you've done and all of that. Yeah. So a little bit of like imposter syndrome, I guess, to a certain degree. Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I mean,
I think
it's
everybody goes through it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm sort of hearing a lot from the other side. I've had a few of my guests who are non-artists, but they still talk about like one particular song by this local artist that kind of changed their life. And I've never heard of that artist before. But it had an impact on this one particular person and in their family. So you never know where it lands, and you never know who's actually at the receiving end of it and who just needed to hear exactly what you've created. So,
Totally.
never kind of lose hope on that, because it happens more often than you think. So don't
Yeah,
stop.
definitely. Yeah, I know. And I always kind of remind myself of that too. Like even if it's just for one person, like that's great. I've done my job then. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, we've talked about your album that's coming out, and it's grief, and it's really funny. I feel like there's so much going on, maybe because I'm moving through my own kind of grief at this point.
Mm,
um Obviously not losing a loved one, but there's grief in different forms in a life. So
definitely.
but yeah, it feels like there's a lot of that emotion circling around at the moment, which is interesting, that and that it brought us together. So the universe works in funny ways. That's kind of
Yeah.
what I want to say. Now, I sort of would love to know, and you touched on that a little bit before. Do you have like a favorite genre of music at all, or is that hard for you to pinpoint? I think I
That
know
is
the answer,
such a
but
hard question. Like I grew up listening to like just about everything. And so to say that I've got like one genre where that I'll just like gravitate to and put on, it's just I kind of depends on the day. I will say like maybe some of the more like formative genres for me in like developing not just my voice, but also my sound to a certain degree and how I approach like songwriting definitely lies more like in kind of jazz, R&B, and folk, I would say, are like the three big ones
okay.
that kind of inform my writing a little bit more.
Mm,
But it now that I've kind of added a bit of a compositional aspect, it just kind of takes it to like a different level.
mm,
Um, so yeah, I just like I have such an appreciation for everything. Um, yeah, so it's hard to say definitely,
yeah,
but those three are definitely up there. Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you got a specific song that would currently kind of a little bit describe where you're at with your life and your career?
Mm, yeah. I liked this question because I was like, oh wow, like this is there's so much to choose from. And,
Mm,
it could be a variety of songs. Like just ask me on a different day and it'll be a different song. But this one that I come back to always was a song I kind of discovered only a couple of years ago, and it's called Little Voice by one of my favorite songwriters, Sarah Bareilles. And she wrote it for a TV series, I think, that she was doing. And it just talks about the tiny voice which I equate to like intuition, is like always going to steer you in the right direction. And so often we get caught up in, you know, the monkey mind and like, should I do this? Should I do that? We're looking like externally for these answers or validations to whatever it is we're dealing with. Maybe it's about a job or a partner or, something else going on in your life. But if you have that ability to kind of tune into yourself, you know, there's so much potential there. And there's often a lot of the answers there that you're looking for. And they're very, very often the simplest answers too. And so this whole song just kind of describes that to a really, yeah, really nice degree, I think. And so very much I have to remind myself, especially with this whole process of not just having to like write the music, but then, I'm co-producing it as well, and then having to put on the social media hat. Granted, with some help, I've kind of outsourced some of that, which has been very beneficial. But and then to also kind of, yeah, wear all these different hats. It's so easy to get caught up in all of the details, kind of leading up to this release. And so being able to kind of get quiet, just tune in, then yeah, all the answers are there.
Oh, I love that. That's so great. Little voice. Very true as
Yeah.
well. So, usually it's this tiny voice that, tries to
Yeah.
knock on your head saying, hello, listen to me.
Yeah. Just do this thing, please. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, don't overthink this, and why are you making it so hard? And don't we all have that
Yeah.
voice?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I love that song and I'll play it any day. I'll just like pick it up on the piano and
Oh,
yeah, great.
nice. So you do play instruments, obviously, because you write your own songs. But what instruments do you play? I'm just curious to know.
Oh, yeah. So, guitar, I'm not the greatest guitar player by any means, but I do play a little piano as well. And thanks to my high school experience, I also play the flute. Yeah. Yeah. And I
Nice.
still play it. I still teach a couple of students as well. So, yeah,
Oh, well, there you go. Well, that's not bad. Helps with the
it's pretty
songwriting,
good.
doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I would say I gravitate the most to piano for songwriting. It's just very much I can kind of organize my thoughts and some of the music a little bit more visually when I've got all the keys kind of laid out in front of me. I think I'm less uh I don't know, intuitive on the guitar. Let's just put it that way. It's not as
Interesting.
innate. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you see like the music when you play the piano almost? Is that how it works for you or?
Sometimes it's
Yeah.
more just like I have like a better memory like for visual, so I'm very like photographic, and so often when I play a particular chord or if I do any kind of extensions on it or things like that, I can picture it better when I can like see the keys laid out. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess everyone has their own way of making music and creating music, I guess. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right. Now, before we wrap up our chat today, I'm just going to throw this question at you. And I didn't plan on asking this, but I will anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, what's sort of your message that comes up to anyone that's listening today and that loves music? And obviously, is there anything that comes up that, you want to share with us here, like about music and how we can use it better, maybe, or anything along those lines?
Oh man. That is
Where to start?
yeah, I know, right?
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I think, yeah, I mean, oh gosh, I could talk for an hour about this, I'm sure. But as as a musician, but also a voice teacher, um, I see a lot of people kind of deny themselves, like, picking up an instrument or, deciding to take a voice lesson or you know, going to enjoy a concert or things like that. And so it's never too late to like dive into whatever kind of musical endeavor you've always been interested in. I would say like it's therapeutic in a variety of ways. You don't just have to listen to it. You can appreciate it. You know, you can go to that live concert, support your local artists, you know, because I find that it really is kind of a bit of a life-changing experience. I've never regretted any concert I've ever gone to. So I think in a way, like just find that way of adding music to your life, whatever it looks like. And that if you want to dive deeper, there's so many options available. There's tons of musicians that are very passionate about teaching. And yeah, like just don't be afraid to like go take a lesson or two and just find that way to integrate the music the way you feel like you want to. Yeah.
Nice. I love that. Great advice,
Yeah.
because a lot of times, like you said, a lot of people get kind of stuck with the listening. And
Mm.
that's not wrong, but
No, no,
you know,
no, not by any means. And I'm saying like, you know, if listening works for you, by all means, like just continue to do that and, you know, just find a way to kind of, yeah, integrate it into your life, whatever way it works. I mean, for me, it kind of fundamentally needed to be, you know, you need to use your voice and you also kind of need to add this writing aspect because it, for the longest time, I actually didn't know how to voice how I was feeling. And so music was that outlet for me. And so um, it became a very important, like, kind of therapeutic tool in order to bring forward all the things that I wasn't really able to kind of deal with. And so I think music has that ability to kind of bring things forward that we may not be able to kind of recognize. And so I love it as a way of, you know, trying to understand ourselves, trying to understand what's going on in our lives. And so wherever that comes from, whether you're listening, you know, or streaming with headphones on, if you're at a live show, if you're making music, I mean, whatever it looks like, I think just find a way to, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, I think that's a wonderful message for anyone that's with us today. So thank you. I 100%
Yeah.
agree and back you up on that from personal experience as well. So yes, I think that's a beautiful way to end our chat today. And thank you so much, Alex, for being here today and sharing a little bit more about yourself, your album, and you know your journey as a musician. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. I enjoyed it. It was nice. Thank you. So for anyone that's here with us today, I will put Alex's details where you can check out her album and her music in obviously the episode description. Go and check it out. Support all the indie artists, the ones that are not sort of in the top 10, 20, 30, 40 or 50s, because some of them, you know, there's some good stuff out there and you just gotta spend maybe 5 minutes and that's all it takes for you to find a new favorite song sometimes. So do that, please. That's my request to anyone that's here with us today. Otherwise, again, thank you.
Thank
And yes, I'm going to leave you beside us until next time. Please, you know, stay safe, much music and love to you as always. Bye for now. Bye.